Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Igcse Biology Help. In today's video, I'm going to be solving the specimen paper for the examination for 2023, the paper 2 multiple choice question paper. So please make sure to subscribe and like my videos in order to support this channel. Now let's start solving. Question number 1, the diagram shows a plant. Which characteristic of living organism is shown by the plant in this diagram? Now over here we can see that the plant is actually leaning or bending towards the direction of light over here, which is coming from the left side. So it's actually bending towards the left side because this is where the light is at. So this is actually, of course, phototropism, and it's actually indicating some sort of sensitivity. So our answer is going to be D, sensitivity. Number 2, lichens are formed from two different organisms living together. Organism X and organism Y are found in most lichens. The table shows some of the characteristics of living organism X and living organism Y. X made of strands called hyphae, and hyphae have cell walls and many nuclei. So X actually indicates fungus, and we know that fungus has hyphae and it also has mycelium. So Y is single-celled, and cell contains a nucleus and chloroplast. Now this is actually not a plant cell. Plant cells aren't single-celled. They are actually multicellular, which means they have multiple cells. So actually this is going to be a prototist and not a plant cell. We know that also prototists can have animal or plant cell characteristics. So they can be both having a cell wall and everything for the plant, and also they may have characteristics for the animal cells, such as nucleus and cell membrane and things like that. So this is actually the prototist. So our answer is going to be B. Number 3, which part of a plant cell controls the movement of substance into and out of the cell? Now this is of course the description of the cell membrane, so our answer is going to be A. Number 4, the diagram shows the structure of a plant cell. What is the function of this specialized plant cell? Now we know that this is actually the root hair cell that actually absorbs mineral ions, and it also absorbs water from the roots. So let's choose one of its functions from the options over here. A says it absorbs carbon dioxide from the air. Of course not. This is actually a plant under the ground in the roots, so no. B says it absorbs ions from soil. Now this is actually a correct function from the functions of the root hair cell, so B is going to be our answer. Number 5, how do carbon dioxide and oxygen move into and out of a mesophyll cell? Now we know that any gas or any like oxygen, carbon dioxide will move by diffusion, so our answer is going to be B, diffusion. Number 6, four freshly cut potato cylinders were soaked for 1 hour in different salt solutions. The potato cylinders were then pinned to the cork blocks. 2 of the potato cylinders are shown. Which solution would cause the potato cylinder to be the most flaccid? Now we know that flaccid is when the plant cell isn't like turgid and it's lost its turgidity. So that can be a result of like water getting out of the cell. So we can be choosing over here one of the most concentrated solutions, so that the water moves from higher water potential to lower water potential or higher concentration. So over here we're going to be choosing the one with the most salt solution, because this is going to be the most concentrated, and over here this is actually D because it contains the most salt. So if it contains more salt, then more water will get out of the cell. So they're asking about the most flaccid, so our answer is going to be D. Number 7, the data shows the concentrations of sugar and starch in an onion. The onion is tested with Benedict solution and iodine solution. Which set of results is correct? Now I've explained the Benedict solution and iodine solution in my paper 6 planning and investigation video. If you want to know more about it, I have explained it there. Benedict solution, if it's positive, then it will turn into red, green, yellow, or orange. Now if it's negative, it's going to remain blue. So this is just the key we're going to be using over here, so we can be solving this question. This is for the Benedicts. Now for the iodine, it's going to be, if it's positive, then it's going to be blue black, and if it's negative, it's going to remain orange brown. Now let's read the question. Over here in the total sugar, there is sugar. Over here there's 3.7 grams. In the starch there is 0 grams. So that means there is no starch and there is sugar. So that means that the starch is going to be actually orange brown, and the sugar has to be any color from this colors: red, green, yellow, or orange. So let's see the options over here. We can't be choosing A or B because Benedict's can't be blue, as there is actually some sugar over here. So no, it's not going to be A or B. We're going to be actually choosing between C and D. C says that it's going to be brick red and brick red, and the iodine is going to be blue, black, and C. This is actually incorrect because over here there is 0 grams of starch, which means that the iodine is going to be negative. So that leaves us with option D, which is our correct option. Number 8, which statement about the structure of DNA is correct? Now let's read the options. Base A always pairs with base C. This is actually incorrect. A pairs with C and C pairs with G. So this is incorrect. Base A always pairs with base T. This is actually a correct statement, so our answer is going to be B. Number 9, the diagrams show a protease enzyme catalyzing the breaking of part of a protein molecule into smaller pieces. Which diagram has 3 correct labels? So they're asking about the correct labels over here. Now, of course, we know that this is going to be the enzyme, this part, the huge part, and then this one, it's going to be the product, and this is the substrate. So no, A is not going to work because this is not the product, this one, and they're asking about 3 correct labels. Over here, there's only 2. Now B, this is not the product again, and this is the active site, which is correct. This is the enzyme, which is correct. But there is, of course, here 2 correct labels, and this is, they're asking about 3. So, of course, B will not work. C, substrate. And here is the active site, and here is the enzyme. Of course, this is correct because we know the active site is in this part over here that I have shaded. So actually, this is correct labels. There are 3 correct labels in this one. So our answer is going to be C. Why not D? D is active site over here. This is not the substrate. This is actually the enzyme, this one. So this is actually 2 correct labels and not 3. So that's why we chose C. Number 10, a student wrote some notes about enzymes. She wrote the 1 is an enzyme, and 2 to the area on the substrate. This area on the substrate can fit into it to form 3 complex. Which words correctly complete gaps 1, 2, and 3? Now, we know that 1 is actually going to be the active site, because we know that over here, number 2 is actually, of course, going to be complementary. And 3 is going to be enzyme substrate complex, because we know that it's actually called enzyme substrate complex, and it's complementary, not similar. Don't use the word similar, it's incorrect. And active site of the enzyme, not the shape. So A is going to be our answer. Number 11, the apparatus shown was used in an experiment. The carbon dioxide content of water in each test tube was measured at the end of the experiment and again 3 hours later. In which test tubes would the carbon dioxide concentration decrease? Now they're asking about the lowest carbon dioxide concentration over here. So of course it's going to be C, because C is actually photosynthesis, which actually reduces oxygen and takes away carbon dioxide. Number 12, the diagram shows a cross-section of part of a leaf. What is the name of the cell labeled X? Of course, we all know that this is actually the palisade mesophyll cell, so our answer is going to be C. 13, why do plants need nitrate ions? Let's read the options. A, nitrogen is a component of amino acids. This is actually a correct statement, so our answer is going to be A. Number 14, in which part of the body of a mammal does physical digestion occur? Now, we know that physical digestion is mechanical digestion. So, let's read the options. A says gallbladder. Of course not, it's not going to be a gallbladder because this is the part that stores bile, and there's no mechanical digestion in the gallbladder. So B is liver. This is actually incorrect. C, mouth. Well, this is actually correct because there is, as we know, there is the teeth in the mouth which actually perform the mechanical digestion or physical digestion, unlike the chemical digestion of the enzymes and stuff like that. So actually it's going to be C. Now, why not the pancreas? Because as I explained now, the enzymes are chemical digestion and not physical digestion. 15. The diagram shows part of the human digestive system where is protein digested by trypsin. Now, over here we know that trypsin is actually in the small intestine, so we're going to be choosing the small intestine, which is A. 16. The photomicrograph shows a cross-section through the root of a buttercup plant. What is the function of tissue labeled X? Now we know that X is actually the xylem, so let's read the options. A says photosynthesis. This is incorrect. B, respiration. Of course not. C, transport of sugars. This is actually for the phloem and not of the xylem. So our answer is going to be D, because as we know, the xylem transports mineral ions and water. 17. Roots and leaves both act as sources and sinks for sucrose and amino acids at different types of during the year. At which point in the year are the roots most active as source? Now they're asking about where is the root acting as a source. Of course, we all know this is actually in the spring. So our answer is going to be A. 18. The diagram shows a section through a human heart. Which blood vessel is the pulmonary vein? We know that the pulmonary vein is oxygenated and it contains the blood from the lungs, coming back from the lungs. So this is one of the only veins that are oxygenated in the human body. So it's actually here in D. 19. What happens to the heart valves when the ventricles contract? Now we know that the atrioventricular valves are going to actually close down. So this is because to prevent the backflow of blood back into the atrium. So our answer is going to be between A and B over here. Semilunar valves is going to open, of course, so it's going to allow the blood into the aorta and everything. So our answer is going to be B. Number 20. What are the approximate percentages of oxygen and carbon dioxide in inspired air? Now we know in inspired air is going to have more oxygen than of carbon dioxide. So we're going to be choosing actually percentage of oxygen between this one, C and D. So percentage of carbon dioxide entering is actually 0.04. So our answer is going to be C over here. 4% is in expired air, not in inspired air. Because as we know, there is more carbon dioxide in the expired air because of the respiration process in our body that releases carbon dioxide and uses up oxygen. 21. The diagram with the structure labeled X shows a bacterium with proteins on its surface. The diagram labeled Y shows proteins made by the human body. Which row shows the correct combination for destroying the bacterium? Now over here we know that X is actually the antigen because it's the part of the cell pointing out. So we're going to be choosing between A and C over here. So Y is actually going to be this shape, so it can properly fit onto the antigen like this, so it can properly destroy the bacteria. So our answer is going to be A. 22. Which environmental conditions must always be present for seed germination? So we know that for seed germination we require oxygen and we require water. And we also require suitable temperature. So let's read the options. We have to be choosing between oxygen, water, and suitable temperature. So A, carbon dioxide and water, we don't require carbon dioxide. B, light and suitable temperature. We don't require light in seed germination. C says oxygen and carbon dioxide. Of course not. D says water and oxygen, which is actually correct. So our answer is going to be D. 23, the diagram shows a reflex arc. Which structure is the sensory neuron? Now we know that the sensory neuron connects between the receptor and the relay neuron. So actually it's going to be over here, A, because it's connecting between the relay and the receptor over here, and this is the relay. 24, what happens to the muscles in the iris to make the pupil smaller? Now we know that the pupil is smaller when the circular muscles contract, and it's also the radial muscles actually relax. So let's read the options. A says contract and the radial muscles contract. Now this is actually incorrect. They both can't be contracting because they are antagonistic muscles. So B says the circular muscle contracts and the radial muscle relax, which is actually correct. So our answer is going to be B. 25, a student used two seedlings X and Y to investigate phototropism. The diagram shows their investigation. Which statement explains the difference in results between X and Y? Now let's focus on X right now. In X, we know that if the light is coming from the right side, then the oxygen is going to accumulate on the shady side, which is going to be over here in the part where there is a piece of glass. Because as we know, oxygen accumulates in the shady areas. So it's not actually going to bend towards the light after some time because the piece of glass was in the area where there was oxygen. So it's going to affect the oxygen and it's not going to bend at all. So in Y over here, it was actually in the opposite side, and the oxygen is still going to over here accumulate in the shady area because it's the same direction of light as X. It's still coming from the right side, and the oxygen is supposed to accumulate in this area on the left side. So over here, yes, it did bend because the oxygen was still over here and there was no piece of glass in this side. So let's read the options. A says the piece of glass destroyed the oxygen on the shaded side of the seedling. Now actually this is incorrect because a piece of glass cannot destroy the oxygen. So B says the piece of glass destroyed the oxygen on the side of the seedling facing the light. This is also incorrect because it cannot destroy the oxygen. C says the piece of glass in X stopped the oxygen from diffusing down the shaded side of the seedling. Now this is actually a correct explanation because over here the piece of glass is of course going to stop the diffusion of the oxygen. We know that oxygen moves in the plant by diffusion. So it's going to stop the diffusion because the piece of glass is disturbing it. So actually this is the correct option. And also it says in the shaded side, unlike this one in the side facing the light, which is incorrect. 26. The diagram shows part of the mechanism that controls blood sugar concentration. A person does 1 hour of exercise starting with the pancreas. What is the sequence of events in which the hormone glucagon is involved? Now over here in the pancreas, of course, there is going to be more glucagon released after the exercise. And then over here, there is going to be less glycogen in the liver because the glucagon will actually take out the glycogen and convert it into glucose. So we're going to be choosing 4 for this one. And then after that, there is going to be more glucose in the blood. So our sequence goes from 5 into 4 into 1. So that is actually option B. 27. The diagram shows the first part of a kidney nephron and its blood supply. During fertilization, the protein molecules do not pass through the wall of the glomerulus. Which part contains the highest concentration of protein? Now over here actually it's going to be D. That's because over here the water has been reabsorbed. So if the water has been reabsorbed, the protein is going to have a higher concentration compared to when it was inside the kidney. So it's going out of the kidney, and you know that protein isn't absorbed by the kidneys, so actually it's going to be D. 28. Which row describes sexual reproduction? Gamete nucleus, zygote nucleus, and genetically offspring produced? Yes or no? Now over here we know that in sexual reproduction the gamete is actually haploid. In order to make a diploid cell, the gametes have to be haploid, and the zygote nucleus is going to be diploid. That's because haploid and haploid actually produce diploid, and of course it's going to be genetically different, so our answer is going to be C. 29. Which organ secretes the most progesterone during pregnancy? So over here we know that during pregnancy actually the placenta produces the progesterone, and this is only when a woman is pregnant, and it's not if she is not pregnant. So progesterone is actually secreted by the placenta during pregnancy. 30. What is the role of messenger RNA, mRNA? Now we know that messenger RNA has the function of carrying a copy of the DNA or of the gene to the cytoplasm and the ribosomes in order to make proteins. So actually our answer is going to be moves a copy of the gene from the nucleus to the cytoplasm. 31. The diagram shows the cell of an organism. The nucleus contains 12 chromosomes. If this cell divides by mitosis, how many chromosomes would be present in one of the daughter cells? Now mitosis doesn't actually change the number of chromosomes inside of the cells, so it's just going to produce the same number of chromosomes inside of the cells, so our answer is going to be B. 32. A man marries a woman who has different blood group from him. They have 2 children. The children have different blood groups from each other and different blood groups from their parents. What are the genotypes of the parents' blood groups? So over here we're going to be trying out each of the genotypes and see if they have different genotypes from each other, and the man has different blood groups from his wife. So let's see, A, and AB. Now this is actually going to be AA, and then it's going to give us also AB and AA and then AB again. So they don't have different genotypes from each other actually over here, so A isn't going to be our answer. Let's try out AA and OO. Now over here, let's try it. AO, it's going to give us all AO. So no, it's not going to be our answer. Now C says AB and BB. Let's try it out. It's going to give us AB and AB again and BB, BB. So no, they don't still have different genotypes from each other. So C also isn't going to work, which leaves us with our only option left, which is D. So let's try it out. Now AB and OO. Now it's going to give us AO and AO again, BO, and then BO again. So this actually is going to be the correct option. This is because the man has a different genotype from his wife. Over here the man and woman have different genotypes, and the children have AB they have BO and AO genotypes, which means that they are different genotypes from each other. So yes, this is actually the only option that is correct, so D is going to be our answer. 33. Pure breeding black feathered chickens are mated with pure breeding white feathered chickens. All of their offspring, F1 generation, have black feathers and white feathers. When 2 of the F1 generation chickens are crossed, what will be the ratios of the offspring phenotypes? Now over here they said pure breeding. So pure breeding means that they are homozygous. So for example, black feathered is going to be 2B capitals, and the pure breeding white, I'm gonna do it for example 2B lowercase. So it's going to all give us, all the offspring are going to be B capital and B lowercase, so that is heterozygous. So they are going to cross 2 of the F1 generation, which is this one. This is F1 generation. So that means they are going to cross the 2 heterozygous, which is B capital and B lowercase. And let's see what they are going to give us. Now it's going to be B capital and B capital, and then B small and B capital, like that. And then another B capital and B small, and then another double lowercase b's. So that actually gives us a ratio of 1 to 1. So our answer is going to be B. 34. Over the last 30 years, some antibiotics have become less effective in treating bacterial infections. What is the reason for this? Now over here we know that if the antibiotics become less effective, That means that the bacteria has mutated and it's no longer like affected by the antibiotic. So this is actually natural selection. So our answer is going to be D. 35. The diagram shows part of the nitrogen cycle. Which row identifies the bacteria involved in the processes Y, W, X, and Z? Now over here in Y, we can actually see that the nitrate is becoming nitrogen, which is actually indicating denitrifying bacteria. So we're going to be choosing actually between A and B for this question. So let's check. A says the X is decomposer. Now actually it's not a decomposer. This is actually the nitrifying bacteria, because the aluminum ions is converted into nitrate, which is actually the nitrifying bacteria's job, not the decomposers. So our answer is actually going to be B. And why it's saying that it is decomposer, this is actually correct, because the dead plants and animals all have become into ammonium ions thanks to the decomposers in Y over here. And also Z in nitrogen in atmosphere, and it became into nitrate. This is actually the nitrogen fixing bacteria's job to convert the nitrogen in the atmosphere into nitrate. So that's why our answer is B. 36. The table shows the processes in the carbon cycle that release carbon dioxide into the air or remove carbon dioxide from the air. Which row is correct? Now, releases carbon dioxide in the air, we know that this one is incorrect, because photosynthesis actually releases oxygen into the air. So let's check the other options, A, B, or D. Now over here, removing carbon dioxide from the air is actually done by photosynthesis. So actually our answer is going to be A, because we know that photosynthesis takes in carbon dioxide and releases oxygen as a waste product. 37. What helps to maintain fish stocks? Now over here we know that maintaining the fish stocks can be maybe done by stopping fishing, or stopping the hunting, or maybe preserving their habitats and stuff like that. We all took it. So let's check the options. Fishing during all seasons, this is not correct. This is actually going to harm the fish and decrease its population. So no, that's not going to maintain the fish stock. B, fishing in all areas of the ocean. Now this is actually again incorrect, because some areas have newborn fish, so these fish are trying to grow, so like that we're going to harm the population and decrease it. So no. C, maintaining protected areas. This is actually correct, because if we maintain the protected areas, then we're going to maybe this area has small fish that needs to grow in order to increase the population and reproduce, and again increase the population. So if we maintain this protected areas, we're going to maybe try to control the population a little bit. So our answer is going to be C. Why not D? D is saying reducing the mesh size of nets. Now, of course, this is not going to work, because we took that we should actually increase the mesh size of the nets, not decrease it. So that's why our answer is going to be C. 38. The statements describe some of the events that occur during eutrophication. What is directly responsible for the increase in decomposers? Now, we know that in eutrophication, the decomposers actually increase when a plant dies. So let's check the options. A says a decrease in dissolved oxygen concentration. This is actually not responsible for the increase of decomposers. This is actually an effect of decomposers in the ocean. So no. An increase in nitrate concentration. Again, this is not something directly responsible for the increase in decomposers. C, an increase in the population of algae. Now, this is actually not a reason for decomposers to come, because there is no dead organism, and we know that decomposers actually process the dead or the remaining of dead plants. So no, and our answer is going to be D, because we know that decomposers come around when there is a death of producers, and they perform aerobic respiration, which actually decreases the dissolved oxygen concentration in the water. 39. Which cell structures make bacteria useful for genetic modification? We know that bacteria actually gets modified from the plasmids. We remove the plasmid and insert in it DNA of the humans. So actually all of this occurs in the plasmids. And our last question, number 40, the diagram shows an industrial fermenter that is used to produce penicillin. What is the function of the part labeled X? Now over here, the options say, A says add oxygen to the solution. This is actually not the job of the mixers over here. These things will spin around to mix the solution, or maybe maintain an even temperature, or maintain the concentration of something in the solution. So A is not correct. B says maintain an even temperature throughout the solution. This is actually correct because it's spinning around, and if there is somewhere that is hotter than the other place in the fermenter, so it's going to mix it around and make the whole solution an even temperature. It's going to even out the temperatures and equalize the temperature throughout the fermenter because it's spinning around, as I said. So that was our last question. Thank you all for watching, and please subscribe and like my videos in order to support this channel so I can produce more videos for you guys, as this will help me a lot and will encourage me to upload more videos. So thank you all, and good luck with your exams.